And here we are. It is Tech Down Overtime again. It's Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Wherever you are, we hope you're having a great day. Joining me in studio, we've got Harold. Out of studio, our co-host, good friend, Jeff Blanchard, coming to us from the land down under. How you doing, Jeff?
Good afternoon. Very well, thank you.
After last week, I thought we were all in studio when we weren't. So I went, sorry about that. We were all green screened, and it all worked perfectly. If you didn't see the show last week, every one of us had a green screen with the same background. It was pretty cool. Everybody looked like we belonged. Anyway, we've got Juan Carlos Bagnell with us today, Some Gadget Guy, among other shows. And here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation at www.relate.com, your training and video partner.
Hello, I'm Peter Baker. Please visit voiceovermasterclass.com to see details of the training courses I have on offer for new and existing voice talents to further their career by enhancing voice and technical skills, as well as essential marketing tips.
And we are back in that middle center position of absolute and total power, which corrupts absolutely. We've got Juan Carlos Bagnell from Some Gadget Guy and about like 3 other shows, or are they all one show?
I get around. I was trying to do the Brady Bunch, like, hey, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. Oh, we're such good buddies. I don't know if that really played for your video podcast there, but I was trying.
That's fine. Well, you've been having some good talks on Some Gadget Guy recently. Is that your live one? I subscribed.
Yeah, my personal channel is Some Gadget Guy, SomeGadgetGuy.com, and I've been trying to make that channel a little bit more initiative focused for things like alternative technologies, brands that typically don't get quite as much play because they're not as SEO popular. Yeah. And then for 2020, I'm going to be focusing a lot harder on hearing health and hearing safety. I've got my new hashtag 2020 hearing. 2020 hearing. Which is going to play on 2020 vision in the year 2020. But I really feel it's time that we started treating our ears with a bit more love.
You're probably the only guy I've heard anywhere talk about hearing health, because a lot of people think, you stick something in your ear, you're perfectly safe. And there's a lot of damage that can happen, especially on some of the cheaper pieces of equipment, which can really actually harm you. Even some of the more expensive ones can harm you. But now you don't have any hearing issue, right?
Well, I'm sorry?
You don't have a hearing issue at all.
No, I actually do. I suffer from hidden hearing loss. So this is a more recent phenomenon that is being diagnosed by clinicians right now. It's very difficult to quantify exactly what the mechanism or the damage exactly is, but there's a whole group of people, especially people around my age and a little younger, where when you bring us into a lab, when you bring us into a doctor's office, we perform very well. Hearing tests, we score extremely well. But then as soon as we're out in a noisy environment, the damage that's been done to our ears manifests in a way where it's very difficult to capture human speech.
Well, no, I have. Interesting you bring that up. I have the same issue. I have better hearing than most of our dogs have ever had. We've had a lot of dogs throughout the years. I'm the one barking first when somebody comes to the door. It's like, hey, dogs, do your job. And I didn't kill my ears when I was younger with the rock music or anything. I had nice, good, headsets I borrowed from my dad when I was a kid, and they were fine. But I have very good sensitive hearing. But if I'm in a place that's noisy or like a really busy restaurant, I have trouble focusing on the conversation because I'm hearing every conversation around me at full tilt. Yeah, and it drives me crazy. But if I'm in a normal room, I'm fine. So is that what they call that sudden hearing loss, or?
Well, so hidden hearing loss.
Hidden hearing loss. I'm sorry.
Because it's so difficult to properly test for. There's no quantifiable measure if it's you have a hard time hearing in a crowded cafe. Lots of flat surfaces and tile floors. Yep. That's not a replicatable testing situation. So we're starting to get more science out on this. We're starting to get more study on this. It's something that was just put on my radar a couple years ago when I recently had a conversation with an audiologist and interviewed her for my channel.
Yeah, I remember that.
in addition to that, there are so many other ramifications to consumer electronics, fashion, entertainment, and I feel like those of us that have some decently sized online or streaming platforms, social media platforms, I'm going to be reaching out to a number of my friends in the tech community, and then also some of the manufacturers too, to also talk about, the science that goes into creating a consumer product, what it's really designed for. I mean, you guys have talked about this a lot. It's using the right tool for the right job. And I think all too often people spend a lot of money on like a nice pair of earbuds or a nice pair of headphones, but they're really not designed for all audio situations or all audio circumstances. No. So if we can help dispel some of that, and we can also have a little fun just talking about something that's kind of gross, because ears are gross, I feel like we'll be able to spread some better information out there.
Well, we're using right now the Shure. What number is this one?
SE215.
SE215. It's about $95. They're great. They're really good headsets. They're not too bad. They're I think it's mainly for voice. They can play music, but they're not that great at music, but they're not bad, and they don't really blow you out. You can put quite a bit of volume without you starting to feel it, and we don't use them very high at all because we're just doing voice. It's pretty clean.
Yeah.
We used to use the big cans, but they get big and kind of bothersome, and after a while, these just felt better. And
for me, it's just, I guess, sweaty. I'm a sweaty dude.
Okay.
I love I'm using Mi Audio. These are the new MX3s.
Yeah.
So they're triple driver in-ear monitors. And then they also run a service locally here in Southern California where you can go get your ear scanned.
Oh, I remember that.
They don't even use molds or putties anymore. It's an optical scanner that they kind of run through your ear. And so I have custom molded in-ear monitors. And people act like those types of professional solutions are out of reach. But the total price on these is kind of in the ballpark of a premium Bluetooth headset. So
like $200-$300, right? People,
yeah. I mean, I think for my combo, the drivers that I picked with the molds is just under $300. I might have my math off a little bit there, but again, you'd spend that on a Bluetooth headset, which, again, for certain types of entertainment might be a bit more convenient, but these are biologically molded to my skull.
That's pretty cool.
You can't really get a better fit for earbuds than that.
Yeah.
And that's probably one big important thing with the earbuds, because the reason why they're always falling out, because they're not really fitting in there correctly, where if they're properly designed, they fit nicely. They don't go too far in the ear, and they don't come too far out, so they're fitted where you want them to be fitted.
Absolutely, and this is actually going to be a future video topic. I'll just plug my channel for your entire podcast here, guys. I've run into that issue in that conversation a lot. Like, well, I tried in-ear earbuds and they hurt, or they didn't fit right. And you also kind of want to follow that up, because you could have a thick gauge single flange, you can have a conical shaped single flange, you can have a crosshatch in the front of a single flange, you can have double flange, you can have triple flange like Etymotics, you can have foam. There are a couple different types of foam core or outward foam for comply foam. The whole realm of in-ear earbuds is pretty broad.
What do you think of those? They're really popular, and I don't know why. I went to Verizon to get, when I got the iPhone, before I gave it away back to my wife 3 months later. I lasted 3 months, by the way.
We were talking about that a little off show.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. But
smartphone therapist for what's going on in your household, we can totally do that.
So I conned my wife back, and I said, I think I do better with the Note 10 Plus. And she goes, okay, I'll take your iPhone. I was going, good. I tried it for literally 3 months, and the first month I was sort of okay with it. And Jeff told me after I told him I got off, he goes, I knew it. I knew you were going to do that within a week. And I go, because I've done that a lot. I buy something Apple, and within about a month, I'm sick of it. So I always give it away or do something with it. But I'm pretty happy with the iMacs. But with the iPhone, I don't know. It does some things nicely. I kind of like the navigation. Other than that, it irritates the living hell out. The UI, I hate. Why do they do little teeny weeny fonts that nobody can read? I mean, really small. So you constantly have to expand it to read and go, okay, I have bad eyes. But still, it's just, I'm not that bad. I can read most things, but that thing is just teeny. So I switched. I'm happy again. The Note 10 Plus, I don't mind. I like having the ability to put widgets and everything where I want them. They have no widgets on the iPhone, and just things like that. I'm pretty happy with it. But when we were at Verizon, she came out with a pair of the what are they called? The
AirPods?
The AirPods Pro, the Pro AirPods. And I go, I don't really want them. And so Leslie goes, oh, come on, try them. They look good. It's like, I don't really need them. I've got my Bose. I'm fine.
Do they look good? Do they look good?
I don't think so. I think they look kind of weird. So I put them in. They sound okay, but I don't think by any stretch of the imagination they're great. I give them, okay, good. Clear enough. Not a lot of volume, surprisingly enough. And I have pretty good hearing, but I still am saying, I can't really hear every discrete instrument where I can with my Bose, for example, or with some other brands I've got. And I went, okay, they're cute. They're a pain in the butt to try to take out of the case. They keep sliding out of your finger. They fall down. It's like, I don't like these. So my wife's got them. Oh, I love these now. They're great. So she's happy with the iPhone and the earbuds, and I'm so glad I don't have any of them anymore. So it's just
that's good that you were able to make the wife happy.
Yeah, otherwise I'd be stuck. And I didn't force her. I just kind of nicely told her, I'm better with the other one. And I thought of getting another brand, but right now I still owe for those two phones. I'll wait another year. Usually I keep them for a year, and if I can get out of it, I get out of it. But I don't know. I've had about 5 notes already, and I had 4 early iPhones, and I got tired after the 4S and never bought one again. Then a year and a half ago, I bought the iPhone 10, and I didn't like it. I turned it back in. I had a return, so that was fine. They gave me 30 days to return. But this one, I passed the 30 days. I was still okay with it, with time. But the AirPods, speaking about pods, I don't know if they'll ever hurt your ears because there's just not a lot of built-in volume. They don't give you, as high as you can go is maybe half to 3/4 of a real powerful one.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. So when it comes to I just realized I think there's an issue on my side, which is why my camera keeps freezing. So hopefully you guys end up some really funny screenshots of me staring off into the distance wistfully. Hold on, I'm gonna pull one thing while we talk and hopefully get this fixed while I expound on AirPods. The issue I've got with AirPods is that Apple is definitely banking on more of a fashion solution, and it's identifiable because they look just like the EarPods, so they look like the old dancing iPod commercials of old.
Yes, yeah,
and it's every ear is different, so it's kind of hard again to properly quantify or to explain who is going to have a good enough fit for the AirPods to get loud enough that they could do damage. But when you've got an open ear earbud like the original AirPods, your only solution for blocking the world around you is to turn up the gain and to turn up the volume as loud as you can.
Right.
And the AirPods Pro, while they are slightly more in the ear canal, they don't fit me like a proper pair of good in-ear monitors. So I still find more of the world is kind of leaking in when I'm giving them a listen, which means my only other recourse is to try and use their noise canceling, which doesn't work as well because I don't have a great seal. And then I've got to turn the volume up even higher after that.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they're okay, but I wouldn't buy them again.
Well, and again, it's kind of hard to be just okay when they're $250.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. I used to have Shure. What was it? 3.2 or 2 something 3.2C. I can't remember the number. It's been a long time. They sounded great, but you couldn't put them on an airplane because they didn't really do noise canceling or anything. And I'm pretty happy with my Bose over ears. Quiet comfort. They're fine. They're real comfy, and on a plane, it really blocks most of the screaming little brats running around, and even the jet noise sometimes. So,
I have a pair of those Bose as well for the noise cancelling, and when I travel quite a lot of the time with going overseas, I just have them on with the noise cancelling and nothing.
Yeah,
It gets rid of just the all that engine noise, but just with no sound on it. It's just heaven there.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm recommending that for more people too, where you might be walking around in a busy city area or something like that. Even if you aren't listening to something, you're not listening to a podcast or you're listening to music, just taking 10 dB off the world around you can be a profound sort of safety. Again, with everything else that's kind of hitting the ear and this discussion of hitting hearing loss and these other problems, our society is just super loud, and we still haven't fully untangled all of the issues with how loud society is around us. Which, when you look at other cultures that don't have our kind of mechanized society, there isn't really the same idea of old age hearing loss. There isn't really age-related hearing loss. Someone in the elder years of that society is listening about as well as a full-grown adult. So we're definitely contributing significantly to hearing damage over time.
Well, like now, the new range of the Bose headphones, they have the adjustable noise cancelling, so you can allow more of the outside world in, just block a little bit, so it's not a full block. Like you said, it's got about 3 stages, so. And also, that's another thing. You don't want it to noise cancel, so you don't hear anything from the outside world some of the times. You want, if you are walking, you want to have noise cancelling, but you still want to hear beeps and other things on the outside. So it's good that they are starting to think about that. So.
Well, it's why I'm really trying to drive home the idea, not that you buy the best product. It's that you buy the right tool for the right job. If you're working out in a gym, you probably don't need a ton of situational awareness. If you're going out on runs in busy city areas, you probably want to hear that bus that's about to turn you into street pizza. You really want to have a couple different solutions for the different situations that you might find yourself in. But what I would want to take to go and work out is completely different than what I'd want on an airplane, which is also very different than what I'd want to give my daughter. Every single time we look at these different situations or these different scenarios, we want to have a better solution to try and make those things work.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that at young ages, even teens to a certain point, any in-ear kind of amplification really isn't that good.
There's the hardware of the ear, and then there's the software of the brain. Yeah. And I would caution anyone raising small children, younger children, on headphone time just as much as we would caution about screen time. You're not going to shove a toddler into a VR headset. That's probably really bad for their eyes. Yeah. The same thing kind of runs true for headphones, both the physical development of the ear, but then also the development of social skills, cues, interactions, the learning of language. As soon as you start blocking a child off from that information, they start missing out on a wealth of information which helps drive the development of the brain. And the flip side is we're also seeing the same degradation happening with adults. If you're starting to lose your hearing and you're having a harder time following conversations, it's very likely that your that rates of dementia are correlating very, very strongly with that type of hearing loss. So again, there's always won't someone please think of the children? We definitely want to make sure kids are taken care of, but then adults, we can always protect what we still have and hopefully make it better through something like hearing aids. Because if we don't take care of it, not only does our tinnitus get worse, you can start suffering from audio hallucinations. You can start degrading your mental faculties much, much faster, suffering from different forms of dementia. All of this does seem to be impacted by the quality of hearing that you maintain.
What's interesting about the audio hallucinations is that basically puts you into a psychotic stage.
Well, I'm probably not as qualified to talk about some of that stuff as a tech reviewer or as a guru.
Yeah.
But again, advanced form of tinnitus will start to resemble things like different types of speech or crowds or beeps or tones or noises. And if you're not going through some kind of medical attention for that or therapeutic attention for that, it would be indistinguishable for some people from a psychotic episode. That's not the right word. I apologize.
No,
but from a disassociative episode,
right?
From some other mental condition.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I know a guy who he's probably around 80 right now, and he suffered from tinnitus for quite a while. And he was literally kind of cuckoo. And I used to wonder, he would talk to himself, and it's like, And, it may have been related to the ear problem. It could have been, because he was mostly normal otherwise. But when it came to certain moments, it's like, and he said sometimes his ears would just ring, and it was driving him crazy. And he heard other things and voices. He wasn't on any kind of meds or anything, but I wonder, that's a good point, what you made about maybe it is that. Maybe it has to do with the hearing.
Well, and again, I would caution in what little science I can still lay claim to, what was scientific theory or scientific method, that these types of situations are rarely ever just one thing. But what I feel qualified to speak on would be the consumer electronics aspect of trying to not only protect your hearing, but then also how to deliver unto yourself, how to provide for yourself a higher quality audio entertainment experience.
Well,
and I think those things can go hand in hand.
And related to that, wait till we find out 5-10 more years how much damage we're getting from eyes overstimulation, because monitors are getting brighter and brighter and brighter. 500 nits is pretty bright. You start getting up to 1,000, and even though they only go up to 1,000 every so often, you could cause damage to the optic nerve pretty quickly. And we don't know yet.
The entire consumer electronics industry is basically engaged in a multi-generational test.
Are they?
From audio tech, visual tech, whether or not wireless radio signals, when concentrated on cell phone towers, contribute to health outcomes in certain populations, whether or not electrical grids are properly maintained, air quality. Unfortunately, all of these things will probably have the good data that we need on the stuff that's happening today in about 20 years, when we've analyzed all of the health outcomes from various populations.
We've killed 40% of the population off. I think we have some numbers now that we can back it up.
We hope not.
Go off from history, all the things that we know from the medical authorities that are safe for us, they're all the things that will kill, that will be deadly in 20 years. Because they've always said they're excellent, they're safe. Yes, you can do that. And in 20 years' time, no, we weren't quite right about that.
Oops.
Remember that?
Sorry, guys.
They used to say cigarettes was it was a good thing to do them. And remember that in the early days? You just can't believe that they were touting that, suggesting that. And I always worry, like you said, with screens and that, with all these big screen TVs, we don't know. They haven't been around that long. And in the early days, you used to go into a thing like a Best Buy and walk down the aisle, and you'd come out and you'd feel like you got a bit of sunburn because of all.
Yeah, and from those of us that work in front of monitors all day, I mean,
all day,
you wrap up your day, and there's something off. I don't have to wear glasses, but I can feel like something changes when I'm staring at a flashing light bulb.
Well, you know what happens. There is a physiological reaction when we are too on a monitor, and I gather most of us probably are, especially in this particular talk right now. We're all in front of monitors a lot. We like our tech. We like getting on. We're doing work on it. We're editing. We're doing whatever we're doing in front of a monitor. Early morning, late night. We're on a lot. There are triggers in about you guys know what melatonin is and how melatonin helps trigger our circadian cycles, which put us to sleep, wake us up. Well, when we're in front of monitors, we completely throw off our cycles. We don't trigger sleep, which is why we can work really late hours, but then we're really tired the next morning because we're not getting enough sleep or good sleep. And they're saying that a lot of that has to do with the way it turns off the melatonin triggers. Melatonin says it's bright daylight, it's sunlight. Look at all this blue light coming at me, or whatever other light we've got. And it's 11 o'clock at night. There's still a lot of blue light. I don't need to go to bed yet.
We've got a couple of
we have some viewer questions
from Andrew Wallace. First, he says #2020 hearing, and then he says, It reminds me of the delayed reaction to the health concerns regarding electronic cigarettes.
Yes. Yeah, they were all great.
When we start looking at some of the differences, I mean, to defend the scientific community and whether or not I'm necessarily the best spokesperson to do this with my busted webcam right now, the thing that I think we should be trying to parse. We look at the history of smoking and advertising, and that you could pay for someone to go out there in a white lab coat back in the 1930s to talk about the health improvements from a good drag on a cigarette. I feel like we've got to be at least a little sensitive to the media manipulation machines that kind of help spread disinformation or fear and uncertainty. When we start looking at health outcomes for the things that we've been tracking fairly well, it's just not sexy to disclose. Science has a PR problem where they're not very good. Scientists at the top of their game usually aren't very good at getting good information out to general consumers. So we always end up with this like parsed headline, clickbait title. If you're doing this right now, it's going to cause cancer. We're going to cure, diabetes in lab rats in 5 years. And we've been saying that for the last 15 years. It's really, I think we've got a major issue of media literacy. When I look at the delayed reaction, for Andrew's comment, when I look at what happened with e-cigarettes, science is a process that takes time to get the answer right. A scientist doesn't want to say e-cigarettes did this and that's the problem. We knew immediately, and then 6 months later find out no, they were totally wrong because they jumped on early data that didn't actually properly describe the situation.
And there's one other thing. A lot of scientists are paid for by certain companies which have a vested interest in them getting certain results. And that's what, look at pharma. That's how we get most of our data. And it's not clean data. It's just paid for data.
It is. I mean, again, I feel like it's delicate because to make a general statement like that can throw the entire scientific community under scrutiny, which probably isn't fair if we're doing our due diligence to find who paid for this study, where was the study conducted. Right. That's the information and the sources that we need to cite.
Sure.
So if we see, there's a study that says cars and car exhaust are totally safe for you is paid for by GM.
Yeah.
We should be skeptical of that. But if we see, researchers are still trying to untangle the health ramifications of e-cigarettes, but are cautioning that certain flavors include chemicals which might not be good for your lungs or might cause damage to your lungs. Well, who's paying for that? What fear do we have that scientific advisory is somehow suspect, right? That seems common sense to me. So really, I keep coming back to, when we have data, the disclosure of data is one issue. The cultivation of that data as paid for by an entity is another issue. And that's why for consumers, it's not just whether or not you trust science or you believe in science. It's, can you find good sources? Are they citing their sources? And how are these studies conducted? So if you really want to know what you're talking about and you don't want to just go stomping around on Facebook with an opinion, you got to do just that little bit of extra legwork. And it's not hard. It takes you a couple minutes, but that's what it takes if you actually want to contribute to this discussion, as opposed to sitting on the sidelines and just saying, well, no, you can't trust them because one time a scientist ran over my dog. It has about as much weight to me in this discussion as some of the complaints that I see from.
And the dog was smoking at the time, too. So it just totally.
And see, the smoking should have cured all the dog's problems after getting run over.
And I suppose, being fair to the, the e-cigarettes with the scientists on them, they don't know that all the rubbish that somebody's going to put into these flavors that's causing the chemicals. They say this is a safe one. Yeah, that might be safe, but people are doing all sorts of things to get their different things that are making them not safe. So,
the number of manufacturers of these chemicals that aren't consistent in their manufacturing approach. I mean, whether or not you want to take your podcast off on discussions of things like legalizing marijuana, it's hard. This is a constantly evolving and moving target, and there isn't a good regulatory agency for us to fall back on so that we at least have the guidelines to point to what are the best practices in this industry, and that allows bad actors to cut corners, cut costs at the expense of public health. And then it's on scientists and researchers and clinicians to try and untangle, well, what the heck happened here? They said that they put these chemicals in an e-cigarette refill. But when we studied these refills, we found there were a bunch of other things too. So where's the FTC? Where's the FDA? Where's there are these other bodies that should also be contributing to this discussion, and yet somehow this industry has evolved beyond our regulators' ability to keep track of.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you brought up a really good point that part of the problem is the science community. That's part of the problem. The other problem is the conspiracy community, which makes up their own set of things because they're not even checking it. They're saying, well, it's been wrong for thousands of years. Says who? And so you get so many different opinions, and now that we have 24-hour internet, 24-hour TV, whatever, everybody hears all sorts of stuff, and you don't know what's real or not. Like you said, you can find out, and it's pretty easy to find out. But most people don't. They just go with whatever they hear. For example, I was thinking when we were talking, kind of along the lines of cigarettes, but when people had colds when I was growing up, everybody said, oh, put some Vicks Vapor Rub under your nose or stick it in, or put Vaseline Intensive Care inside your nostrils. Well, oil getting into the lungs is actually pretty good for infections and a whole mess of other problems. They didn't know that then. Even the doctors didn't know. Doctors say, use the Vicks Vapor, stick the Vaseline Intensive Care.
Oh, not only doctors then. In someone who works in a completely unrelated field found out that I suffer from a pretty brutal rhinitis and recommended, well, just shove some olive oil up there. This is a medical professional who has nothing to do with ear, nose, and throat care falling prey to some of that common wisdom that probably not a good idea.
But do you know what a good solution for rhinitis is? Rhinitis is?
What's that?
I've got it too. When I first moved to Camarillo, where we are, it is dry as hell out here. And I started getting bloody noses I grew up in New York, but in did high school here and been here ever since. And when we moved to Camarillo, of all places, I started getting bloody noses. Like, oh, what's going on? It was the dryness. I mean, this week we were 4% and 8% a couple of days. It's like, nose is just like in pain. Well, I went online, I started looking, and I found one guy who was talking. He was some sort of alternative care physician, but he was a doctor, and he said, the best thing is KY jelly. And everybody started laughing when he said that.
Petroleum.
But you know what it does? No, KY jelly is water soluble. No oil in it. And I got like the Ralph's version, which was something similar. It's the same exact ingredients. And you just dab a little bit inside your nose and the dryness goes away. You wake up the next morning not in pain. It works. And it works beautifully because nothing else works. And that's the only thing I've gotten to work. Simply saline helps a little. What, Jeff?
Seeing the conversation when you're telling somebody you're sticking KY
jelly on my nose does wonders. Yeah. Because KY jelly, talk about branding, issues. yeah. That's a whole other issue about branding, but it's funny, something that really works for stuff like that. And if you've got rhinitis, which is really brought on by dry air, it's just very dry climates, it does wonders. And you can get the Ralph's version. Vaughn's probably has a version. They all have versions of it, and then they're exact duplicates of KY jelly. And it doesn't hurt. You just put it on. All of a sudden, it's like, oh man, my nose was killing me. Now it's fine.
But I not to leap to some obvious commentary tangents on you putting KY jelly up your nose.
Yep.
One of the things, especially for what I feel like I can contribute to a conversation, I'm talking about consumer electronics and hearing health. I've been working in recording for 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's more, I feel like there is this massive media literacy issue at play where consumers aren't always aware of how much their content is being manipulated, the feed of content that they're seeing. Yep. And then also just trying to dispel some of this fear of doing a little research. And not just, I did a couple Google searches, but what research actually resembles. Like when I was growing up as a kid, having to suss out information from a library and card catalog and looking up papers and trying to follow the thread on what that means. If you're passionate about a topic and you care about being accurate, then these are the types of steps to help engage in the process. And science is a process. It is not a conclusion generating machine, magic black box that we just believe in. It's you feed some information into this part and then a result comes out, and then that changes part of an assumption or a hypothesis, and then the whole cycle repeats itself. And I feel if we can help guide consumers in some of those discussions, then this stuff actually gets a lot easier to approach. I mean, the outcomes on what we hope people will be able to do, they perk up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's true, and you're right. We've been talking about hearing loss since the 70s and 60s with headphones and other things, because people could really crank them up in those days. There was nothing to govern how high those things went. And have you ever been to an event or a theater or a rock concert or something? When you get out, your ears you're so buzzing. That's going to cause some damage eventually if you go to enough of those.
Oh, it's doing damage in that moment.
Yeah.
You have caused damage. That is the past tense. Damage has already arrived. And what you're describing there is also called platform threshold shift, where your ears will try to save you from making dumb decisions. And they will try and save the auditory mechanisms in the ear, will try and dampen what's happening. And then also your brain is trying to disregard an overload of signal. This happens at lower levels.
Yeah.
So when you get comfortable to noise in your environment at a higher level, your ears start to numb, even if you don't necessarily hear the same ringing or tone like you're standing in front of the monitors or the subwoofers at a concert. The same thing is happening there too. And that's also why I've been so concerned about the popularity of these AirPod style earbuds.
Yeah.
It's you turn them up, your ear numbs, you turn them up louder because they're not as satisfying. The world, you can still hear all the noise around you, and you keep playing this cat and mouse game before you're maxing them out.
Yeah.
And at that sound pressure, you are doing damage to your ear in a remarkably short period of time, but it doesn't feel like it because your brain and your ears are trying to save you from your own poor decision making.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, rather than looking at good audio design and reputable manufacturers, companies are just looking at, well, Apple did it. Apple's making a lot of money on it. We should do it too. And they're driving an entire industry of consumer audio, which is a shame because it's not difficult or it's not too expensive to get phenomenal audio quality for gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah. And for not that much money.
Yeah. No, I mean, the pricing on audio has fallen pretty steeply. And some of the mainstays, I mean, you look at someone dropping $200 on a pair of AirPods, you know, I can pick up a pair of Bear Dynamic classic studio cans that have stood the test of time, and they're like 160.
I know.
So again, it's about rejoining that conversation and also not scaring people away with audiophile or pro monikers or anything like that, because those terms don't really mean anything anymore. If it's good audio, if it's high quality, if it represents the frequencies of sound well, and then also if you start to develop a taste for what kind of tuning you like, you know, if you like bass heavy stuff, if you really like mids and articulated highs, all of those other conversations, you know, that's a next step. But you have good options now, and they're not prohibitively expensive like they used to be.
No. It's sort of interesting. You mentioned Bear Dynamics, because that brings up another argument about the cans. When you have them on, you've got open in the back, and then you've got the completely closed. Now, I had a pair of Bear. I hated. They were closed, and when I was talking, I thought I was in a bathysphere. It was like... It's like, oh, it's awful. And I couldn't do a show or anything with them because it was a constant coming back at me. I was like, oh, this is horrible. And so I gave them to a musician friend who loved them. He was like, this is great, because he didn't want anything interfering with his guitar noise. It kept it out, but yet he could hear it clearly in his earphones. Any comments on open-backed versus closed headphones for listening to music or other things? I prefer open. It just, to me, it sounds better, and it doesn't give you that pressure in the ear. What do you think?
I mean, again, like I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but for me, it largely comes down to, are we using the right tool for the right job?
Yeah.
And open back headphones, like I've got a pair of Sennheiser 599s on my desk. Just a great pair, sort of mid-range open back headphones. And then I also have my DT770s. Those are probably the Bear Dynamics that you tried that are closed back. And then I've also got some HD25s. Each one of these is a different solution. So if I'm using my open back cans, these guys right here, it's because I'm listening in a decently quiet environment where my ears aren't competing for any sound around me. And I have this open spatial sound, which is a lot more like sitting in front of some good speakers. If there's any noise happening around me, I want to block that out, and I have to go closed back. From there, I can also look at circumaural versus supraaural as to whether or not I want big, comfy cans that completely surround my ears, or if I want on ears, because my HD25s are not comfortable, but the headband clamps those things so that they crush the ears against the sides of my skull.
They do.
And if I'm doing location mixing or field recording, that is so much better in short bursts for blocking the world around me than any other solution that I found. Again, for my biology. So right there, I'm talking about, what is that, $250? I'm talking about like $450 worth of headphones in 3 pairs of headphones, but with purpose that each one of those fulfills a different solution for what I need. And that's really where I just want consumers to kind of look at their own behavior. If you're constantly in noisy environments, open back cans are a terrible investment for you.
Right.
If you're in like a nice, decently treated or quiet environment, and you want that more spatial, that more open, that airier sound, there's nothing that approaches that. So it's never, I mean, we've got to get consumers out of the mindset of winner or loser, thumbs up, thumbs down. You know, the most popular option gets the most press coverage, so I know I'm on the winning team. This is not a team. This is, did you get the right fit for you? But
it's marketing. It's so marketing. Yeah. It's so marketing.
Absolutely.
You know, we were talking about that on a show the other day about, in marketing, it's not, the whole thing is to get you from saying, I want something, to I need something. And if they can get you into need mode, they won. That's really what it comes down to. 400 other people need that too. Oh, I want to be like them. And immediately you go into need mode. And that's how they get you. It's they create that need over a want. Want is like, yeah, I kind of want it, but I don't need it today. The need is, I got to have it. I'm late. I need it now. Yeah. So.
Or, I mean, coming back to your experience with the iPhone, I mean, like, I have a couple family members that went with iPhone Pros this year because they just didn't really want to be showing off the cheap iPhone. They're not doing anything on those phones that warrants having $1,300 iPhones. But, you know, they just didn't want to look poor.
Yeah.
You know, like,
that's funny.
Which is rough. I mean, again, this stuff, we're all conditioned by it. Anytime we want to act like we're above it, we all are all a part of this system that kind of keeps.
Yeah, you're surrounded by it. It's hard to stay above it. You know, you can, even when you're logical about it and you know exactly what you're doing, you go, why did I just do that? And, you know, in my case, I wanted to get the iPhone Pro 11 Max or whatever, 11 Pro Max, because I wanted to really see if it was better for the eyes. I have bad eyes. So I figured, let me see if this really is better with the accessibility. Apple has good accessibility. Samsung's got better accessibility. And people would go, no, that's wrong. Kill him. But the truth is, everything I can do with 1 or 2 keystrokes with my Samsung took 6 or 7 with Apple. And those 6 or 7 add up. When you're doing it all day long or you're on a phone more than a couple of hours, you're like, I'm really getting tired of having to do this. And it winds up being more of a detriment, and it's a more limited. Yeah, it makes things really big, but you have to constantly swipe across that little lever to make it bigger, smaller, rather than just, I go like this. And in many things, I couldn't do this. So I just said, yeah, I'm going to go back to my Note. I liked it better. And I actually do like the stylus because I use it to type with, because I'm faster on the stylus than I am with I have big fingers. It's like, so there were just little things that turned into big things that eventually just got me irritated. And that's me. Other people might say, I don't notice. My wife goes, I don't notice what you're talking about. It feels fine. Okay. Yeah, but she's got perfect vision. Doesn't need to zoom anything in. So I go, it's a different issue.
Right.
So, yeah. I was thinking of getting a Google Pixel, but by then that would mean I have 3 phones. I don't need 3 phones. So, well, I just need one, really.
Again, as a tech reviewer, try not to do that because I've got 6 phones on my desk right now.
Yeah.
And it gets hard to think when you've got so much stimulation happening.
And don't you agree? They all have something you like, and a lot of things they don't.
Yeah, I mean that's again, we keep playing this game with YouTube because YouTube looks at what is most searched for, so that becomes the most popular, and then that sort of becomes its own self-fulfilling prophecy. But literally every single major outing that I got to play with over 2019 had very reasonable pros and cons. Mm-hmm. Everything from the iPhone at the most expensive end of the market down to some of the cheapest phones in the $200 to $300 space. Yeah. It wasn't hard saying there are people out here who are absolutely gonna love what this device offers and won't care about the compromises. And playing this game where it's either Samsung or Apple because those are the only things that YouTube wants to promote is completely regressive if you're a fan of this stuff. If you actually enjoy technology, your main argument should always be good competition. And I think that's true of any industry. If it's the recording industry, if it's the camera industry, look at how amazing competition has exploded for photography and video modes right now, and down into pocket computers, laptops, and desktops. All of this should be built on, did you get the right fit for your needs, or did you just get whatever someone shrugged at when you went into a carrier store because it's the easiest thing for them to sell?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because in the video world, I know some guys that say, we shoot all our videos with iPhones. Really? And we went into a shop one time, well, actually a company. We do corporate video as one of the things we do, but we went in and we were shooting with the GH4 at the time, and then later GH5s. We also shoot with Canons, and we've got Canon C100, C200s, we've got XF705. So we've got professional camcorders and cameras, and we also have kind of the mid-range professional stuff. And we walk in with a Panasonic, and the guy's like, "You're shooting with that? Looks small." And you come in with a big camera, and they're like, "Ooh, cool, professionals."
Well, what he's doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. You might not know any better what you're doing with the big camera, but if you come in with a big camera, oh wow, you're cool. Because even though they don't know anything about videos, maybe the guys you're filming for, they know size, and at that point, size matters.
But it's also, Rick, it's not that person as well. It's also their boss that comes in to see the film. What have I spent this money on? This little camera? I've got one of them at home. Yeah. I could have done.
Yeah.
Again, like looking at like one of those little black magics, and you're like, wait a minute, this couldn't possibly be worth this.
And they're good. The quality's amazing on the 4K and the 6K ones. They're amazing. And you know what? You don't get the same video quality on a phone. I don't care how good the phone is. It's just not there. It's just the lenses are too small.
I think we watched Apple during their last keynote. I think we talked about this the last time it was on you guys' show.
Yeah.
They made such a big play out of the iPhone Pro, and they showed it shooting these amazing videos.
Right. Yeah.
You look at what they actually did, and it's like, the camera becomes way less of way less of an important component when you're on a multi-million-dollar soundstage with a rain machine and a full production crew and all of the lighting and the grips and the assistants and the stabilizing and the platforms and gimbals and dollies and all of this stuff. At some point, the camera becomes less the deciding factor on what makes a professional production. So you could very easily swap in a couple of different cameras and achieve very similar results when you've got an army of talented cinematographers and assistants and set personnel to make something look as good as they could. So I'm very positive on mobile photography and mobile video for what it can accomplish, and especially for the immediacy. I think the killer app for a lot of this stuff is in the journalism space, where you're not trying to set up the cinematography of a narrative. You're trying to document. You're trying to analyze. You're trying to deliver information as accurately and as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And the stunning video quality that you can accomplish off of a phone is right in line with some of that style distribution.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sounding like a broken record here. It's all about having that conversation about right tool for the right job.
Now, while we wrap up, what do you think the best? I won't say the best. What is one of your favorite phones, for example, for good hearing or good quality audio?
So that is an excellent question. Thank you so much for asking it. The phone is basically been cut out of the conversation because of getting rid of things like the headphone jack. Now, unless you want to do business with a company like LG, where they genuinely not only still include a headphone jack, and rumors are pointing to them keeping it for 2020, but the headphone jack on LG phones for the last several years has been audiophile grade. And I cannot stress this enough. It is a DAC and an amp, which is in another league opposite any of the other phones that used to be on the market for headphone playback. I cannot say enough nice things. If you've ever walked around with like a $400 or $500 standalone digital audio player or media player or iPod, LG phones were often competitive, if not better, than those $400 to $500 standalone products. If you don't want to do business with LG, if you're a fan of Samsung UI or you like HTCs or Motorola's or some of these other players like OnePlus, it's really what you're going to want to start looking at is investing in audio solutions off of the phone. So if that's Bluetooth, that could be one solution, but Bluetooth is terrible for lag. We've been making it better, but if you try and edit or watch a video or play a game over Bluetooth, it's almost always on a delay that makes that an impossible endeavor if you're trying to like cut up a video or if you're trying to play a game where those audio cues are important. You could also look at, so there's a couple manufacturers like Fio is a manufacturer where you could get like a USB DAC. So it dongles off of the USB port, but it offers usually higher quality and a little bit more oomph on the amp than just these little cable dongles that you'll get with the phones, especially like the iPhone dongle, not one of my favorites. So it really like this is kind of a dark time right now for traditional headphone audio, and we still haven't sussed some of the solutions that we might be able to accomplish with USB. I'm really hoping that over the next couple of years we'll see some more competition there as USB becomes a bit more standard. Especially if the iPhone is forced to go USB after that European Union, that EU vote on mandating a universal charger. Yeah, that could actually help. People will be more interested in offering an audio dongle for the iPhone if it's a universal solution that's not licensed over Apple's Lightning connector. It's less expensive for them to produce. So I'm cautiously optimistic that some of these things might get better, but as it stands right now, it's LG or nothing.
Interesting. Okay. Good answer.
That was a very long answer. And
very good answer. Actually, no, it was good. You went around the circle, but brought it back to why, and I like that. That was good. Jeff, any ending comments, questions?
All I was just going to say, I think what you should do, one, is talk to our guest we had on last week, Dave Mays, and get him to do a music video called SomeGadgetGuy. He got one for the Gear, did one called the Gear Guy. I thought he could do a great one for you, and you being in it.
Right on.
And you know what? Do you know Dave Mays? He used to be Dave Altizer, but he changed his name back to like a stage name, Dave Mays. But he lives down in Costa Mesa now, I think, somewhere in that area.
Oh, wow.
So he's not far, and his dad's got connections with, he's a music producer in Nashville. So he did a whole, it was actually kind of fun. He did a whole music video on I'm just a tech guy or a gear guy.
It was called the iPhone. Yeah, but the Gear Guy, and I thought that would be good if he could do the Gadget Guy. He would do some Gadget Guy. He would do a real good one for you on that one. That'd be a great one.
I love it. Well, Jeff, I'm just happy that we were able to hang out on stream. Yes. That again, all of us were on the same one. I know my webcam was not cooperating, but I
I did have to laugh throughout the thing when it froze. It was freezing in sort of the most appropriate position sometimes.
Yeah.
Go,
Look at that.
and it held in just the right thing for most of the time, not in silly position, but it was sort of like a thinking mode. Like now it's frozen in a thinking mode. So a good one.
This is contemplative gadget guy, and I think it's a good look for me, so I just left it alone.
Yeah.
That's fun. Well, hey, again, appreciate last moment you coming on. You're a trooper, and we really do appreciate that. And as always, it's fun. We talk about we're always doing deep subjects. Actually, we usually talk stupidities with people, but no, you actually bring us up a bit. That's good. I joke.
I'm glad that this is an elevation of the conversation.
No, we actually have pretty good conversations, but we tend to talk more along the side of video, audio. We will do phones and other things. We don't talk about audio as much as we probably should, and we really should, because that affects all of us. And video and TVs and stuff and monitors, that affects our eyes big time. Have you ever noticed this? If you stay on a Mac or something, just keep your eyes on it for a while, go into a dark room, you'll notice that room is very bright. You've brought a lot of light into that optic nerve, and it doesn't go away right away. It takes maybe 5-10 minutes sometimes. That's doing damage to us too, just like the ears. It's really, and they're finding out more and more about it. I go to a retinal specialist, and he talks about stuff like that. He goes, we're killing ourselves with the eyes. So another thing that's happening to us, modern tech is not yet well known enough in terms of the 20, 30, 40-year reviews. I mean, we've only had LED monitors for about, even LCDs, only for about 15 years. It seems forever.
And the carryover, I mean, from CRTs and other types of display technologies, the bombardment of television style content distribution. Again, we're playing a multi-generational game. And unfortunately, the data won't be there until we see significant health outcomes.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot again. And for all you folks watching, hope you enjoyed. And we have our Some Gadget Guy's website down below, so you can go watch and listen to his podcast. But make sure you have safe headsets on, please. Take care of yourself. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you next week on Tech Down Over. Bye. Thanks. Bye. And